So good evening and welcome to this live Ask Me Anything About Property with myself, Saj Hussain. So for the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be here answering your questions about property, anything I can do to help you get further faster in your property investing journey. So I've got some questions left over from last week. I'm going to start with those first, answering those. We're live on a number of different platforms on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Yes, thank you. Live on a few different platforms. So wherever you're watching this, particularly if it's live, just pop your question into the comment section below, and then Khalid will pass those to me and I'll do my very best to answer those questions for you. So I said I'll get started with a few questions I've got left over from last week first, and then we'll crack on with any other questions that I can help you with this evening. So first one is from Ashley on Instagram. This one came through. Hello, Saj, I hope you're well. I came across your rent-to-rent video on YouTube and would be very interested in giving this a go myself. My question is, how did the referencing process work when going through an agent, as this would be a company let and the company's referenced as a company have to show tax returns? So when you're referencing at a letting agent, it's really down to the individual letting agent in terms of what kind of referencing checks that they decide to do, and ultimately satisfy themselves that you can afford to pay the monthly payments, because ultimately that's what it's about. That's what they're looking for at this stage. They're not really concerned about whether you're going to look after the property or whether the condition or furnishings or any of those things. What they're really talking about at this stage is your ability to be able to afford the rent. Now, when you're starting out, you haven't got a company that's got a historic record or 3 years of accounts that you can necessarily show to say, look, this is my trading history, this is how much I'm earning, yes, we can afford to do that. So it's about being a little bit more creative and asking the agent, what is it that they're looking for that they need to make sure that they're happy in terms of your affordability. So one of the things I've found, particularly in the early days when I was doing that, worked particularly well, is to offer to pay rent in advance for a certain period. Now, this depends on your situation. You may not have the funds necessarily to do this, but let's say, just using this example of £1,000 a month is what you have to pay the agent each month. Now, if you're paying, say, £3,000 as your first payment, let's say that's January, February, or March's rent, and then you start paying your next payment on, say, the 1st of February, that means your agent has always got 2 months' rent advance from you. Now, sometimes this becomes an issue around deposits and resident deposits, but because we're talking about company lets, it's not actually going to be relevant there, because you're not the individual that's renting the property for yourself. It's not your home, essentially. So by paying rent in advance can be another way to alleviate concerns that an agent might have around the affordability. So they're always ahead. There's unlikely, the chances are you're going to fall behind. And if they are, you can put break clauses in, which means they can come in and recover the property quite quickly, i.e. repossess it from you. And of course, you're going to do your very best to ensure that doesn't happen by making sure you're paying the rent on time. So when you're unable to demonstrate a history of a company that's going to take on this property, you really need to get a little bit creative with the agent about finding a solution that works for them and that will work for you as well. And if you haven't got the money necessarily to pay up front as an advance rent or a large deposit, for instance, it's just being transparent and say, look, this is something a number of people I know around the country I'm working with, if you are, for example, that are doing at the moment. We're looking to bring this into this area. These are the type of tenants we're looking to house. It's a new project. We're not going to have a history. So what is it that you need from me to make this work? Now, remember, tenant fees got banned last year in June. So if you're renting a property for yourself as a home, there's no more fees to pay. But when you're doing a corporate let, the agent can still charge you a fee. The agent actually will charge you a fee because that's one of the few times they can charge a fee for an applicant. Now, what that means is they're probably most likely to favor you over somebody who's going to live in their property because they're earning an income out to you from that. So actually, I hope that helps. It's about being a little bit more creative. It isn't a case of it's dead in the water just because you haven't got the history, you haven't got the accounts. It's looking at what can you do to make that work? What is it the agent's looking for? Being transparent with them from that point of view. Some people talk about making stuff up and lying. And I don't think that's really the way to go, particularly if you want to build a long-term relationship with the agent. for the agent to maybe bring other properties to you as well. You want to be really transparent, show them the kind of stuff you're looking to do, whether it's photographs or videos. Even better would be if there's somebody local that you could work with, and then you could show what they're doing, that you're looking to do the same thing. That would also help as well and give confidence to the agent that you'd be the right person for this property. So Ashley, I hope that helps. So the next question I've got is from Paulie, which is also on Instagram. Paulie's question is actually it's also on Rent to Rent. Hello, thank you for your videos on YouTube. They're really very good. Thank you very much. I'm trying to get into Rent to Rent and property sourcing, and just want to know what the basic concept to actually starting Rent to Rent. As in the very first step you need to do, actually start Rent to Rent. Also, do you believe you need training, or is it something you can learn as you go? So look, here's the thing. Now, Paulie, when you're getting started, my view on these things is it's really important to understand what it is that you're getting into, i.e. getting some background, some learning, some training, whether it's you're reading a book, whether you're learning something online, you're doing a course, or you're getting some mentoring support. It's really important just to understand and be sure you know what's involved in the strategy before you get started. It's not really one of those strategies that you want to work out as you go along. So it's a little bit like jumping out of a plane to do a parachute jump, but actually not having the parachute with you and then building the parachute on the way down. It's not a great place to be. You really want to understand what's involved, be prepared, and as you're jumping out of that plane, you've got the parachute and it's ready to go. So let me just whiz over some basics with you first of all. So when you're doing Rent to Rent, essentially what we're doing is taking on a whole property, we're breaking it down into components such as rooms, and then letting those individual rooms out, effectively creating a HMO out of a house. Now, it may be an existing HMO, but it may be a family house that you're converting to a HMO. So the very, very first thing you need to do is to understand what type of market you might be entering into. Who are the tenants that you're looking to put into that property? So what do I mean by that? So is it going to be working professional tenant? That's really my core market. Is it going to be people that are maybe out of work or not working and maybe on some kind of benefits? So the government's going to be paying the rent. Is it going to be some kind of group that needs some assistance and an additional help, for example, like supported living? Is it going to be students or many other categories as well? Once you worked out who it is that you want to target and create the property for, then you can start working out, okay, what the other things are important. So let's assume, for example, you're going for the working professional market, which is what the market many people want to get involved in because it's a nice, clean market, generally speaking. Clean in the sense that you don't have too many issues with the tenants. Tenants generally care about their credit files as well. They're more likely to pay you a higher rent. They're earning more money. So when we're looking at that particular market, now you've got an idea that actually I want to provide accommodation for these type of tenants. So when you're looking at which area you're in, so for example, I'm based in Birmingham, I'd look at the local area, what is the makeup, what's the demand for this particular type of accommodation, but you could be somewhere where there may not be a huge amount of demand. So you want to do some research about actually what's the demand for this type of accommodation, who are the competition, who out there is already creating these kind of properties, how well are they doing? You're looking at those, you're looking at their online adverts, ring people up, speak to them. Some people will speak to you or give you an idea about how the market is, how long they've been doing this, some tips for you. Other people just will not be too pleased to hear from you because they see you as potential competition. Hey, that's okay, because not everybody is the same. So you do some research about the market itself, and then the next thing you want to do is understand what I call the operating environment. The environment that you have to work in, the rules and regulations of that area. So for example, in Birmingham, again, you want to understand what planning rules are, what licensing rules are, any other things you need to be sure of and take care of. So for example, talking about Birmingham, we've got Article 4 coming into place in June. So what that means, I won't be able to create any more HMOs after the 8th of June 2020 without planning permission, whereas right now I could take a house and turn it into a 6-bedroom HMO without the need for planning permission. So it's getting these basics right. First of all, it's understanding the product that you want to create, who's it for, is there demand for that type of product, what's the environment that you need to work in, and then you do your numbers. Right, what's the rent I'm going to be able to achieve, what's going to be my running cost, what's my setup costs, and what is it ultimately that I'll have to pay for that property to take it on and do those numbers work. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where I'd start. I've got some great videos on this on YouTube. I'd want to have a look at those rent to rent videos. they go into this in a lot more detail, and hopefully that will help you there, Paulie. So let me grab a couple of more questions. So question on LinkedIn from Philip Moore, Property Tax Solutions. Can you advise me on stamp duty, land tax matters? So no, I can't. I haven't got the expertise. Of course, I understand the basics in terms of what's involved. You really need an expert when it comes to stamp duty. I discovered this on a couple of complex transactions, that it's not simply a case of just asking my solicitor or just asking the accountant. You need specialist advice, particularly if you've got something a little bit unusual when it comes to stamp duty, because it's a very, very specialist area. So make sure you're getting the right advice on that to help you with that. So Mohammed Khalid, a friend of mine, Atwood Estates, LinkedIn, question is, what's your property investing strategy for 2020? Great question, Khalid. So what I will be doing during this year is I'm continuing to sort of finish off the HMOs that we've got going on. I've got a number of these projects running. I think it's about 7 we've got running right now. I'm going to get all those finished, get them up and running, get all that working before the middle of the year. And over last year and the year before, I've been getting more involved in developing property, and that's really want to shift more of my focus. We've got a very good portfolio of HMOs. I still think there's an opportunity here, but I think right now there's bigger opportunities on the horizon on development, and that's building houses out the ground, building apartments out the ground, converting bigger commercial buildings into residential use. That's really where I'll be focusing more of my effort on this year. But it's a much slower strategy. For example, if I identify a building or something that I want to convert to residential, it could be a year and a half, even 2 years before I get paid out of that particular transaction. But it's going to have a great payday, but it's having the patience. So sometimes it's important not to jump into strategies like that unless you've got other things going on. That means you've got a reoccurring income, so that you can afford to wait for the bigger paydays on these development projects. So next question here. So I've got questions also on LinkedIn. Michael Jones, I'm looking to do a flip after 12 months of educating myself. I would like to use a bridging loan and work with someone who already has experience. Would you see this as a good strategy? So Michael, essentially, so after education, so I'm assuming you've done 12 months of education, you worked with someone on a program or mentoring, and now what you're looking to do is you've got a potential project that you might acquire, renovate, and sell on for a profit, and you're looking to use a bridging loan to get that, and whether you can have somebody to work with you. Well, before you take on, for example, somebody as a joint venture partner in that project, I'd say it's really important to think about what is everybody going to bring to the table? What value is everybody going to add? So if you're the person, Michael, that's found this great deal, you're the one that's going to roll up your sleeve and be responsible for the project, whether it may not be kind of, you know, stripping the plaster off the walls or whatever. It may be just be there, be responsible for that project. You're the one that's in charge. It's your neck on the chopping block if this doesn't work. Then really it's thinking about what is it the other party is going to bring to this particular transaction. Now, you know, when we talk about joint venture partners, people typically talk about having a 50-50 share. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be set up in many different ways. But let's say we're doing that. You're giving 50% of what profit you're going to create on this project for somebody who's going to maybe bring the experience and some of the cash. Well, actually, my question first of all would be, do you really need to do that? It may be a good idea, but actually it may be an even better way, if you are comfortable and confident that you can deliver this project, is to employ and involve expertise, which will also help you in the credibility of being able to get your loan at a better rate as from the bridges, because then they are de-risking the scenario by you having somebody more experienced involved. But they don't necessarily have to be a partner in that project that's going to share the profit. So I would just explore that first. Of course, I think joint ventures are a great strategy. I've done it for many, many years. I'm a big advocate, but I don't think we should automatically use that as a default position and jumping straight into a joint venture. We really have to look at what's going to be the benefits. Is it going to be the right thing to do on that particular deal? If you can raise the funds, if you've got sufficient uplift in the transaction, you can afford to pay for somebody involved, you can keep all the profit at the end. You don't need to share it with anybody. So I hope that helps, Michael. So so Xiao Ming's got a question on Facebook. Does the tenant does the landlord have the right to know their tenant's email, mobile, references, vetting agency obtained for their tenant? That's a great question, Shami. Now, I had this question when I used agents many years ago for sourcing me tenants. This is when I was self-managing and I was trying to do a lot of this stuff myself before I set up my own agency. Now, my view is the agent is actually going out there to find a tenant for you, and that tenant they're passing over to you for you to manage. So that means they're passing everything over. Now, I did have a challenge with a tenant in Warsaw. I had a property in Warsaw that I was using the agent in question here, and they'd refused to give me the information, and I was just livid. I would say, look, I'm not going to take a tenant on that you won't give me the contact details of that particular tenant. I want all the referencing papers, I want all the documentation, I want the application, I want everything that they've given to you, so I am comfortable because I'm taking them on as my tenant. And they wouldn't do it, and in the end I refused. I wouldn't work with them. And then now going forward many years, we run our own letting agency, head to my letting agency, and occasionally we do some tenant find. We don't do it very often because I simply don't think it's viable. I think we're better off focusing on our own properties and managing those in terms of the ones that we do full management on, and my own portfolio and the landlord's ones that we manage. But of course, if we're doing a tenant find, we would pass all this information to the landlord, and you'd get the tenant's consent, particularly now with data protection, because that would be the excuse. Oh, this is data protection, we can't give this information out. No, the agent is acting for you. You're paying the agent to work on your behalf, to go and get the information, collate it, summarize it, and give it to you. So as long as you make it very clear to the tenant that this information is going to go to your potential landlord, all of it that they're handing to the tenant, the tenant is handing to the landlord, I'll get it right in a moment. As long as you make it very clear to the potential tenant, the applicant, that all the information that they give to the agent is going to get passed on to the landlord, then there should be absolutely no issue in my mind why you can't get all that information. And not only should there not be an issue, I think it's important that you have the information. Otherwise, how are you going to communicate, firstly, with your tenant? And secondly, you don't know their background. If the agent is just handing the tenant over to you, you want to understand a little bit more about the tenant, whether they're going to be the right tenant for you. So I hope that helps, Shami. So another question was this. I think this one's also for Shami on Facebook. Rent to rent, does a letting agency still get their monthly management fees? It's absolutely up to you. Depends how you create the transaction. So when you're doing a rent to rent deal, just going back to what we were talking about earlier on, when a landlord is looking for somebody to take on their property, they could either pay the agent to find them a tenant, which is a tenant find only service, just as we were just talking about, or what they could do is find the tenant and then manage the property going forward. So I think a great question to ask when you're looking at potential rent to rents is you ask the agent when they're showing you around, or when you've got them on the phone initially when you're doing your calls and you're asking about the properties, ask whether they're doing full management on this property or whether they'll be doing a tenant find only service. Because if it is a tenant find only service, that means as soon as they found the tenant, they're handing all the paperwork over, and then the relationship going forward will be between you as the rent to renter and the landlord. If they're going to be doing full management, then what that means is they're still going to be collecting the rent that you're paying on the landlord's behalf and then passing it over to the landlord. Now, what's the advantage or disadvantages? The advantages for the agent is this is going to be the easiest work they've ever done, because the reality is you're managing the property as the rent to renter. They're going to have very little to do. You're going to be paying them each month the rent. They take their deduction of the fee and pass that on to the landlord. Not so great for the landlord, because the landlord is paying this fee when actually they're not really doing very much. But if you try and cut the agent out of a transaction when they've said to you at the beginning that they'll be managing the property, the agent's not going to be very keen to work with you because you're trying to get them out of that transaction. So when you understand whether it's a tenant find only or it's a full management, then you adjust your conversation accordingly so you can steer it down that road. So for example, if they say to you that they're going to be doing full management in this property, then you talk to them about the benefits of them being involved, and this being the easiest property they ever have to manage. It's going to be really straightforward and simple. You're consistently be paying your rent on time for them, so it's going to be great news for them. So talk about the benefits for them. If on the other hand, they talk about they're doing a tenant find only, then you talk about the benefits of why this is going to be a straightforward process for them. The landlord's going to love this because they're going to get a guaranteed rent. There's going to be no voids. if you're taking care of maintenance, whatever it might be, you stack up the benefits as to why this is a good deal. So let me grab another question. Let me see how we're doing for time as well. So how are we doing for time?
10 minutes.
Okay, so we've got a question here on Facebook from Kabir. Would you ever pay 6 months or 7 months upfront for a deal? Now, I don't have a context here, so I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm assuming you're talking about taking on a property deal from somebody. That might be a deal you're purchasing because someone else has sourced it. It could be a rent-to-rent type arrangement where you're going to be taking over a lease or a management agreement on a property. And what they're asking for is 6 or 7 months equivalent to be paid of profit, I'm assuming, or rent. Now, let's break that down because I said I haven't got the context. If you're buying a deal, let's say it's a purchase. Somebody sourced a deal, they're selling it to you, and they've sourced it for you, and they want a sourcing fee that's equivalent to 6 or 7 months profit. Well, what is that? Well, let's say it was a HMO and it was going to be £1,000 a month you're going to create from that profit from that property, and the source is asking for 6 months of equivalent profit in advance, which is say £6,000. Now, before we say that's a good thing or it's a bad thing, we really need to understand how much work is the sourcer doing. If the sourcer simply found a property that was online anyway, they've just crunched the numbers and they're pointing you in that direction, in my mind, that's certainly not worth £6,000. On the other hand, if they've found the property directly with the vendor, they've secured it, they've got paperwork signed that locks it in with them. Maybe even there's a bit of below market value in that. There's a little bit of discount. So there's some equity locked into the deal. Maybe they've even explored some drawings, some plans, done a little bit of work, how it's going to work as a HMO. They've done due diligence on the pricing, the costing as well. Then what you've got there is somebody that's done quite a lot of work and almost kind of a turnkey type arrangement. Not necessarily everything's done, but it's ready to be done. Now, that might be worth more than say £1,000 or £2,000. So it depends in the context of what you're looking for. Now, I've paid substantial fees sometimes, or sourcing fees, and I've charged substantial fees when I've sourced deals on for other people. So the biggest fee I've paid for a deal is £25,000. They might be thinking, £25,000 I've paid for somebody else to find a property for me? Yes, but you'd fall off your chair if I told you the numbers in terms of how much money that deal was going to make for me. Because it's a phenomenally good deal, I was more than happy to pay that because I'm looking at overall context of what that means, not the fee in isolation. And also, when I previously in the past, when I was sourcing quite actively, and I was selling deals on, occasionally I charge fees almost double digits, £9,000, £10,000. And you think, why would somebody pay that? It's because how much value was available to the person that was taking on the deal. So it's all context. I would never say straight away, yes, I'd pay that, or no, I wouldn't pay that. It depends what it's going to be. Now, let's say we're talking about rent-to-rent type deals. Somebody's selling a rent-to-rent deal and they worked out the profit and it's £1,000 a month. Just keep the number simple. And what they want is 6 months of profit that you're going to earn on that deal. Now, if they've got it already, it's all ready to go. Maybe it's an existing HMO and they worked out all the numbers and it's going to be a really easy deal. Then you've got to work out what's comfortable for you. Maybe you could pay that kind of a fee, but at the same time, if they haven't done a huge amount for you and they're not adding that much value, then maybe it isn't worth that kind of investment either. Because let's face it, if you were going to go and find your own property, a rent-to-rent property, you've got the time, you've got to negotiate the deal, you're viewing all these properties, you're crunching the numbers. Once you've got the property, you've got all the paperwork to do to sign it over. Once you've got the key, you've got to get the property ready, might be preparing, might be some compliance, might be furnishing. And so all of these things cost time and money. If you could get a property that had all that done for you, what is that going to be worth to you? So ultimately, it's thinking about the context of what does it mean for you and how much you're willing to pay. I'd say these things are really subjective to be fair, Kabir, in terms of answering your question. I think it depends on what value you feel you might be getting, whether it's worth paying that fee. And of course, the other thing I would say, it doesn't matter how good a sourcer might be or how bad they might be or their experience, you should always always do your own due diligence on any deals you are buying, and don't simply accept the numbers a sourcer has given to you. I'm not saying the source's numbers are right or they're wrong. I'm saying you are responsible for doing the figures yourself to make sure you either confirm those figures or do your own research, decide they may or may not be correct with what the source is offering you as well. So it's really important you're doing your own due diligence, and if you think there's significant value there, then of course, yes, you pay a fee that you feel is right. And fees aren't set in stone, they can be negotiated too as well, and at what stage that they're paid. Remember, all these things are negotiable. So a quick reminder for tomorrow evening, we've got our monthly property meet where we meet in Birmingham, the Novotel Hotel in Broad Street. It's on the third Tuesday of the month, which essentially is tomorrow evening, unless you're watching this as a recording, in which case you've probably missed it because it's probably going to be past Tuesday, and you should maybe book on to the next one. The link is sajhussain.com/networking. You've got the details of the event. For tomorrow evening's event, we've got a few tickets left. Remember, we only have 100 places. Once those 100 places are gone, it's we close the ticket sales. So if you've been before, you'll know it's a fantastic meeting, a great place to learn, meet new people, to network, to develop yourself as a property investor, build your relationships as well. It's probably the largest meeting around the Midlands. Well, it's probably the largest meeting outside of London, and certainly the largest meeting in the Midlands. So I'd encourage you to come along. There's a few tickets left. There's 2 VIP tickets left. What are VIP tickets? VIP tickets are, if you're finding this useful, VIP tickets are not only do you come along for the evening, but once the meeting finishes, we go and have dinner privately. Yourself, a few other people, usually a handful of people, around a table, just a handful, and we have dinner and we chat about property. So I'm there with you, we'll have dinner and we can talk about property, answer any questions that you might have, and if I can help you in any particular way. So the VIP ticket gets a dinner with you and I afterwards. If that's what you want to do, just when you do a ticket selection, select the one that you want. So have we got time for one more question? Let me see if I can find another one. So I've got a question here from Junaid on LinkedIn. I think that's a great name because my son's name's also Junaid. What's the best way to start in property? Well, Junaid, this is a question I get asked quite a lot, but the reality is I can't really answer it in a short space of time because I really need to understand more about you first. So the thing is, people get interested in property primarily for one key reason, because of the money that it makes. That's really the main reason people are interested in property, because it's a great way of building wealth, generational wealth, and it's a great way of creating cash flow quite quickly. But you have to think about, why is it that you're looking to get involved? What is it you're looking to try and achieve? And then put that into, think about it in a holistic way of how much time have you got available to learn about this, and strategies, which strategy you're able to implement. Some take a lot more time than others. How hands-on you might want to be, what contacts, connections you may already have, what resources are available to you, what financial means do you have, are you mortgageable, do you have other property experience already? All of these factors, or some of these you can leverage of other people. For example, you might be working with somebody, you might have somebody in the family, brother, sister, father, that's already involved in property. Can you leverage off some of them? Can you involve them in your business? All of these factors should really be considered before you can think about what strategy is the right one for you. There are so many ways to make money from property. Believe me, it's unreal. There's so many ways that you can actually benefit from investing in property, but it's you can't do them all. So you have to pick the one that's the right strategy for you. I think this is a mistake many people make when they get involved in property. They get just blown away by all these different strategies that can be used. And it's a shiny penny syndrome. People start off doing this strategy, they get distracted, they're seeing something over here, then they start that one, then they see something over here. You spend a month or two on one, a month or two on another one, or 3 months here, and you don't get any results. The reason you don't get any results is because you're flittering all over the place, and this is where focus is so important. And so that starts with, look, why is it you want to start investing in property? What is it you're looking to try and achieve? Which is going to be the right strategy based on where you are right now, or what means and resources you have around you, which is going to be the best strategy for you to be able to get the result you want. These are things you need to take into consideration. Unfortunately, I can't give you a straightforward answer as, look, this is the thing you need to do today, just get on with it, because I think it's much more important to understand what you're doing. If you want to give me some more details, ping me a message, happy to chat. And if you look anywhere near Birmingham, you should come along to the meeting tomorrow evening. Even if you're not in Birmingham, with people from Manchester, Sheffield, Rotherham, London, Sussex, these are people, names I've already seen, and addresses for people that are booked for tomorrow. So people travel from around the country to be at this meeting. I'd encourage you to be there. So look, thank you so much. I know I talk fast, but I only have about half an hour to share this information with you. I'll deliver as much value as I possibly can. And I'll be back here next Monday, same time, 8:30, to share my knowledge and experience with you to help you get further, faster in property. And I look forward to seeing you then.